Well, we got a Coachman Freelander Class C in here, and you can see we've got pads on everything, on the floor. That's just the way we do things. So we got it all padded up, and I showed you right there because evidently I didn't get an initial video on this, but the bunk was rotted, so we took this off. And this one's framed a little differently, it looks like. So it's got some of these ribs right here. There's a couple of ribs. We want to explore some of that. But at the top, it doesn't have anything. So that's all vacant space. And this product that's on here is not fiberglass all the way through. It's not like that. It is plastic with fiberglass in it. That's why it wrinkles up when the sun hits it. If it doesn't have a substrate behind it, it will wrinkle up bad. This one wasn't too bad. We're going to try and salvage it. But that's the first that I've seen these little ribs in here. I don't know what year this is. But anyhow, we're going to tear it apart and see what we can do to bring her back to life. And the platform, I believe, is rotted too. All right, now we're going to get to work. So this is our top piece that we took off the pylon. This is one with the logo on it, right? And then, but this is what they do on the back. It's just cardboard. Basically, that's all it is, just cardboard. That's why it doesn't have any strength. That's why they all fall apart. So we're going to scrape all that off there and we'll get this thing redone. That's a shame for what you spend on these things. So these little radii that they had going around here, they're just screwed on. This one was already loose, but they just got a couple of screws in them. That's all it is, going into that cheap alloy. That's why it falls apart. I mean, it was a good idea, but it still didn't give it the strength it needed. So it looks like the outside here is good and the other opposite side is good too. You just got a platform issue, and that's all just aluminum. It's just low alloy. This stuff is real cheap. Yeah, you can't really weld this stuff. You'll burn it up.
Clear.
So that's all. Yeah, yeah, that's what they look like. Defibrillator. You could probably use them for that. Yeah. We'll go into camper rebuilding and medical emergency supplies.
Screwed down to it.
That's not even connected. It's not connected to anything.
Yeah, just a little L bracket they got a screw in.
Nothing there. That piece is just loose. Yeah. We're going to take this piece out. I got, yeah, that one, was one rib in there, but I don't even know. Maybe all foam for all I know. So we take that skin off. But this is the roof. So that's what they want you to do. Go around and put some more of this stuff on here. See how it just loosens up? Put more on, moron! They exploit people's ignorance to roof systems. That's what they do. So you want to check around here. If you get slits or anything in here, you want to make sure, you know, once you start getting slits in here, you got to replace the roof. But, you know, you want to check, make sure like the caulking like that is all sealed, you know. We just kind of go down with the camera and check out all the stitching looks okay, but you got some of this fading right here. And that looks like a slight rip right here. So, same with these antennas. We're going to replace the antenna. We don't reinstall these. These are problematic. There's a shaft that goes all the way down and it goes through the ceiling, and then there's a crank on it. If you have one of these, you know what I'm talking about. But if I elevate this up, that little shaft would be above the ceiling. You'd never be able to get the little handle on there. So, and then typically they'll have this wire will go down through here, and when it does, there's usually a boot there, and you want to check that, because if there's a boot there, that'll just leak. That'll just outright leak. Like right here, that's just, I can push my finger through this. That's just a plain out hole for the wire to go through. But they must have obviously have everything routed over here. So we'll, when we put a new antenna on there, we'll just get it over there. So that's what we look for, all this stuff. See how low the air conditioner is? They did put a piece of foam up in the front to try to keep some of the debris from getting up into there's a foam gasket up underneath there. So I mean, that's not a bad idea. It kind of helps stave off the main gasket, but and it looks to me like it's trying to help balance it out, but you still need to get that up on a curb. You can see that vent is all broke up. Is that a satellite there? Did we take that off?
No, I was about to ask you.
Oh, that's a mountable satellite. Yeah, that's one of those, that's a whole bracket assembly, and you click in a dome and you can carry it around, you can move it around. That's what that is. I think King makes that. So right here is a pretty vulnerable spot too. You'll end up getting these to breach. See how these wiggle? And you get these to breach, and when they breached out, then you get little water droplets in there and start rotting everything out. Sounds pretty good though, you know, but it's a common problem. Does it happen on every single one? No. Is it common? Yes. And somebody backed into this something on this ladder. And I don't think that's in our work order, but we'll call them and see what's up. It looks like it bent it up pretty good there. I don't think that's the design of it, to swoop around. So we'll see what they want to do with that. Look like it bashed it in, squashed that pretty good. So looks like it may be 2 pieces. No, they just crushed it in there. So we'll get with them on that and see what we want to do. Or if they want to put one on, we have to get that ordered. I don't think I'm going to be able to fix that thing up. I don't know, I've done crazier stuff. Let's get that right here. We're going to have to grind all that off. We'll have to grind that, maybe even just cut it out totally, and then we'll have to redo it, send it to a shop and have it repainted. You know, it's hard to get that stain off of there. That'll leave a terrible stain on the coach. Bad karma, bad juju. See all the, you can see all the product they keep putting on here, and that's what they want you to do. Keep putting more on, more on. If this did work, and we'll say, yep, you got to put some more product on here. Put some more product on. You say you put 1/4 of an inch, which isn't very much. We'll say you put 1/4 of an inch. You're supposed to do that 3 to 4 times a year. You're putting on anywhere from 3/4 to 1 inch of product. So then you keep doing that every year. Pretty soon you'd have a moat. You'd have a big galley here. And then the other bad part about that is the more water that sits in these, if it were a galley, if it worked that way, that water would turn into a magnifying glass, and then it would just start eating everything apart, right? The UV light would just start deteriorating everything. So that's, I'm sure, is a plumbing cap. So we've got another awning over here. But the rest of this wall here and that other wall, they look fine. They look fine. This is a nice coach too on the inside. It just never surprises me at how crappy they build things. Watch this right here when I do this. See? It's already coming apart. So it's just real low alloy. They try to make it as light as they can and as cheap as they can. Boy, someone really slobbers some caulking on there. Pretty heavy. You know, need to caulk, like take these off, and all this really needs to be recaulked. I don't think that's in the work order, but I'll check that as well. It's just time consuming to do it. So if a customer can do it, awesome, but you have to get every single thing, clean all that out. Even the slide outs, you got to open the slide outs, you got to get everything. Water touches it, it needs to be sealed. All these little tiny screws. So this insert trim, I don't like this insert trim because what it does, I'll see if if I can pop this out here, if I get, here we go. See that, there we go. See all the debris in there? So this just sits on the track like that. And when it gets down this track, you can still have water trickle down right in here, and then the water will get inside that track, right? So the product that we use, and this doesn't even have gutters, so we're gonna put gutters on it. So this is actually just scrap, but the water will get in here and then it just travels. So these screws, all these screws should be sealed. Every single screw should be sealed. And that's what we're gonna do when we put it together. But yeah, there's no gutters on here. Needs to have that. And then what I'll do is I'll put a gutter on the back here so I don't have all this water just running off the coach. Keep it off the coach. I'll put another spout on here. There'll be a spout coming here and a spout coming on the side. Keep that water away from the coach. So All right, well, let us start tearing some stuff apart. We're already working on the bunk, and we'll get to tearing the roof off here after a while. Got to figure out the ladder. Watch this ladder when I move it. There's a nut in the side there, and that's probably loose. So the ladder, either way, it's got to come off. And we'll see if we can do something with it. I wanted to show you that, but that's pretty problematic. Then way down the bottom there, this one that's returning back in at the end, I'll put a piece that'll go from there down to the bumper. So all that weight is going on the bumper instead of leaning on these outrights here. Because they'll just sag down. I don't know if you can see that. Watch this here. See how that's moving? And I'm not even putting a lot of weight on it, just pressing it with my foot. So that eventually water will get in there and it'll start rotting the wall out. Check out how rotted that platform is. Whew. So all they had in there was this insulation. Right there, there's a piece of it. It wasn't even foam. We just filled it with the batten in there. The foam actually gives it some strength once it's all glued together. But obviously we got way too much water. This is our platform right here. So we made a new one, obviously out of wood, put some more strength in it. Then we put some foam in there and got that all squared away so it's got some insulation value to it. Also had strength, so all the perimeter, that's all glued in, that's adhered down. We got another one we're going to glue on the top. Then we put the Phylon on there on one side, and we'll probably put some roofing on the inside, and that's it. So we're trying to get it together, and we'll get the radius going. Here's our Freelander. So we got the platform all built up underneath. We rebuilt all that. We showed you that. Got this nice radius right here. That is super strong, and it's pretty light. But and then we obviously got the top piece done. We got another piece of Phylon going on the top. We added those radii up in there. They didn't have any. They just had those aluminum ones, that a couple of them that were just not right. So we put those in, and what you're seeing there, the brown, is actually pieces of metal we used when we glued those radii in, and then we fastened them in, and then we glued them. You can see that white up underneath there. We had to glue them in there. If you start trying to throw these screws in there, you're just going to split that wood. So we glued everything together. So now the next step is to put another piece of sheet metal on the top, another piece of sheet metal right here. That'll get glued, and that'll hold the whole thing together. It's going to be super tight and strong. And then we got to tear the roof. Well, we got lucky. We didn't have to do any redecking on this either. I think I've had a couple of these come in lately, which is good. So all we do is just clean it up. We're getting ready for roof. We put some protective, these are just sheet metal. We just break it up, and it just protects the Phylon, the edge of the roof right here, because that comes out, it's kind of sharp, and then the Phylon comes up. So we just put this on here, protect it. And then we already got the front Phylon on. Then up underneath here, this piece that you see, that goes all the way across. And then there's another one right here, which goes all the way across the front of the radius on here as it curves down up underneath for the bunk. So we got that all back on. We just glued it on. And then yeah, I showed you how we did. You can see the piece right there actually. So we put all the radii in, fasten them all up in here. Everything's all glued. You can see all the white glue on there. So we're coming ahead with it. We got the one on the back as well. And one of the things I wanted to point out, we glue all this down. Everything's all glued and fastened down, so it doesn't want to work loose. All right, so we got both sides rolled out, and now we're hitting it with that big roller. Back and forth, and back and forth, back and forth. You pack her down. That thing weighs like, I don't know, 110 pounds or something. So we get all that. Then, you know, I showed you we put the edging on here. This is a 60 mil commercial grade roof. And this is the same product you're going to find on a hospital, a library, a restaurant. And if you look, you can see these little squares in here. I'm trying to see if the light can pick it up pretty good. There you go. You can see them over here. So that's a mesh that's built into it, which resists hail, tree branches, things like that. It's real strong material. This is, like I said, this is 60 mil. That's how thick this is. Compared to what was on here was like 25 mil. You know, 25. Yes. So we're going to put a gutter on the back. Should be able to get one to clear those lights. Yep. So we'll put a gutter on the back, get rid of all this. We got to put new gutters on and everything else. And otherwise, she's ready to go. Some groovy knee-high socks there, dude.
They help with the arthritis.
Yeah, arthritis, yeah. Well, we're pretty much done with our Coachman here. And then what I'm going to do, you can see we got caulking behind here. That's all sealed. And we seal every single screw. See if I pop this loose here. You see, we seal every single screw. It's all sealed. So we get that all sealed, and then what we do is strike this down, and then I put another bead of caulking on it. And then when that cures, I'm going to put yet another strike. So this is going to be my first strike all the way around the coach. See, still got that there. I've got to go around, you can see some right in there. So we're going to do the first strike. All right, so we do have the one strike on here, and I went all around, obviously all around the whole coach. But I like to put 2 strikes on here. The reason I do that, if you ever operate a caulking gun, you'll see that it'll pop and it'll crackle. That means you just injected an air bubble. So these things rack, twist, flex a lot. So I want to make sure that we don't have a bubble breach. So by putting another pass on top of it, what are the chances of having one air bubble, air pocket land on top of another one? Probably slim to none. So that's what I'm going to do now, and it'll be a little thicker. So this one that I just put on, that's kind of thin. I cut the tip smaller because I'm really trying to push it down inside there. And now this other one will overlap it. And that'll be our second pass. We're done with our Coachman. The Freelander is free. All right, so we got our little logo up here. We always put the date up here. So this way, when it comes back in, we can monitor how the roof's doing. And also, if the customer were to sell the coach, then they can say, hey, the roof was put on, May of 23. And there's still a warranty that we can extend if they sold it, right? So typically the warranty is, this is a 20-year roof system. So every year the customer comes back, then we extend it for another year, the warranty. That's how the warranty works. So come back in 24, now it's warranted. Come back for an initial inspection. This is how the warranty works. Come back for an initial inspection, no later than 60 days. I like to see it in 30, but I want it to travel is really what I want to do. But I know people have certain things they got to do, so that's why I say a couple of months, you should be able to make arrangements, try to come back so I can do an initial inspection. And what I'm looking for, making sure all the caulking is sealed right, making sure all the welds, everything on here is just perfect. These things move, they rack, they twist, they flex a lot. So that being said, I want to make sure nothing is broke free, or, I get another Freelander in here, another Freelander coach in here, and it's going to rack and twist and flex differently. I want to make sure everything is addressed. So after that, come back every year thereafter. So they come back in 23. We'll say they come back in 2 more months, July. Then their warranty will be extended to July of 24. Then they come back in July of 24. We extend it to July of 25. That's how the warranty works, and we keep doing it annually. These need to have annual inspections. If you think you just put something together and never ever inspect it, you'd just be fooling yourself. That's even on a commercial roof. When you put the roof down, you do the same thing. You go back and inspect the roof in about 30 days, and then every year you go and inspect it. That's just what you have to do. Make sure everything's okay. But and a lot of people don't realize sometimes there are things that happen, like maybe it's a skylight, maybe it's something cracked, or who knows. Maybe I had one customer, he had birds get up on there on his I think it was a Lance camper. Some vultures actually ate his roof. It wasn't this roof, but it was a roof that he had on there. That's why we did do it. But you never know. I mean, something could have hit the roof, and you're just not aware of it, right? So that's why you always want to inspect it. But I want to start up by thanking the customer for bringing this coach to us. I mean, they came a long way for us to do this job, and that's why we take the time to address all the issues to make sure it's done just right. No one wants to, go do things twice. We certainly don't want to do things twice, so we want to make sure it's done, and that's why we use this type of material. Dollar for dollar, pound for pound, this is the best application. I've seen spray systems. Those spray systems, and when I was doing commercial work, I had machines that did what they call recovery, and that's what they are. So for instance, like in our building here, this type of roof, this metal roof, you can do a recovery system on it, and it just, obviously it prolongs the life. But on a camper, you can't do that on a camper. They just don't work well on a camper. If they did, I would just buy it and I would do it, but they don't work well on it. So I'm not afraid to go buy the machine, it just doesn't perform well. So if you were to Google, or shall I say get online and search for commercial roof images, you would see all of these, like the vents, you'd see the plumbing, you'd see plumbing coming up through the roof on a commercial building, you see it in a boot, you'd see a vent sitting on a commercial roof, you'd see it on a curb, and that's what these are, they're called curbs. These are all heat welded. There's no caulking, it's not glued, those are all heat welded, much like when you weld two pieces of metal together, the same principle. So on a curb, the way they do them on a commercial level, you have what's called the flashing on the bottom. That's that little apron that goes around that we actually weld down. And then it has counter flashing. The counter flashing is kind of near the top of it, and it's just another flange that comes out, and it prevents water from riding up on top of the curb. And I build them into all of the curbs. So all of these I build myself. We don't sell anything here. We're not a DIY channel. There's nothing that we sell, even the insert trim. We don't sell one thing here at all. So that being said, we got all of these curves all heat welded in here. And then this is, again, this is the plumbing. If this plumbing cap comes off, if it pops off, it's just gonna go down into your holding tank. So there's no alarm there on this. But on this here is a little different story. So that's a solar fan. And what happens is you get some dew that sits up on here in the morning. And when the sun comes up, it evaporates that off. But the dew, not only is it here, it's on the inside of this lens as well. So you have this lens. When you get in the shower, there's another lens. So there's two lenses there. You got this is the outer lens, and then you have the inner lens. There's a little cavity in there. Well, there's no air in there, there's nothing. So what happens is when the sun does come up and evaporate this off, that frost or dew gets condensated, and then it starts to drool down, and you can get, basically it would be a dry rot, because it's just trickles of moisture that come in that eventually the wood sucks it up and dries it out in a sense. But you don't want to have that. When you have a lot of dry rot, then what happens is you end up with rot. So the way to prevent this, that's a solar fan. So when the sun comes up to evaporate this off, that solar fan kicks on. When the solar fan kicks on, it draws from this. So there's a trough that goes in here into that cavity, and then there's another one right there. So it pulls the air, and it goes up over the inner lens, comes back down, and then it goes through. So it keeps constant air going through this. So all that said, if this pops off, if you notice this gone, you have to take a plumbing cap, or take this plumbing cap, and just replace this, or tape it up, because that will leak right into the coach. It's just an open trough. So keep that in mind. So other things we cannot warranty on here, we can't warranty the lens. We didn't make that. Can't warranty the, you know, the fan, like things like that I can't warranty. So we do warranty, obviously, that, you know, the roof's going to stay watertight, and that's why we want to do the inspections. If we see something, we want to be able to correct it before it becomes a problem. So I showed you we put 2 strikes along here. I showed you all that, and then I showed you all the screws are all sealed up underneath there. And then this is the flange that I'm talking about right here. This is the counter flash. So in this case over here, you got this one. The water's traveling, you get caught in a storm, and that water is just barreling through, you know, a heavy thunderstorm or whatever, and it's barreling through. It'll try to ride up, but it'll give it another direction to go. It'll go around it, and it minimizes erosion effect. And if you notice, we did not put any screws in here. Years ago, I used to put screws in them, and all I find is that they end up cracking. So now people say, hey, how's it going to crack? Well, it could crack a couple of different ways. One, obviously, if you tighten the screws down too much, but it stresses that out. And it may not crack now, but then when the sun is sitting on this, and it's hot out, it's 100 degrees out, now you get a thunderstorm, that's going to contract real quick, and when it does, it pulls, and then you'll get stress fractures, you know, through the screws, right? So we don't do that anymore. We just glue them all down. That's all glued, much like a windshield on a car. It isn't going anywhere. So on the air conditioner, you can see we got a couple of stands that I put in the back, just a couple of supports. I put them on there, it just gives it some balance. And then in the front right here, up underneath here is a foam gasket. So when the water comes down, I don't want it to trickle along this way and the wind's blowing to get into that foam gasket. So this is yet another piece of, known as a counter flash as well. So that will direct the water below this counter flash, and it'll wash out. so now there's no water getting up into the that foam gasket. But everything around here, it's all heat welded. So I have to make all of these components. I make them all myself. So they, again, we got 2 strikes going along everything, all along here. And it's always smart for the customer when they get it back wherever to double check all the caulking, especially some areas around here, you know, just to make sure. We leave folks with a care package, and it's not too hard to just look at it. And if it looks like, you know, from all the shaking, rack, and twisting and whatever, if you see a little breach, you can just use the product we leave you and just put a little swab on there. So this way, you obviously don't have an open hole, which could lead to another problem. So we went around and we sealed this. We put the whole bunk back together. We showed you that, and get everything all sealed up in the front. So that's the gist of the roof system. Now, this is a 60 mil commercial grade TPO. TPO stands for thermoplastic. Thermoplastic, that's what it stands for. And thermoplastic welds together. There are a couple of different roof systems that do, so some other people say, well, PVC does. Yes, it does. PVC is another commercial grade roof system, typically used on chemical plants for environmental fallout, certain plants that may have some stacks or, you know, some exhausts that those chemicals or byproducts may get on the roof would otherwise deteriorate, like maybe a TPO roof, but a PVC is a little different and it's more expensive. But on something like this, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, this is all you need. And you can look in there, you can see all those little squares. That's a reinforcement. So that helps protect against hail and helps to resist like tree branches. And there's a little weave in there. I don't know if you can see it right here. So there's a mesh built into it, and that's what gives it its strength. Okay, so it's a great, great system. This in particular is a 60 mil. That's how thick it is. It's a 60 mil commercial grade roof membrane. And again, all of that gets heat welded into it. So the other thing we did was we changed the insert trim, and on this coach we put gutters on it. It didn't have any, we added gutters, and then we put the insert trim in. Now the insert trim, this is a little different than what they do. This is a little different than what they do on the commercial, the RV industry. What they do is put a piece that goes in there and it slides in this track. Theirs goes inside here and it can slide back and forth. What we use is this, and you can see that little groove that gets into that track, and that this way the water will go in, it'll come around and go into the gutter instead of going down inside that track and traveling. Although we do have every screw sealed just the same. But I like this a lot better, it sits better, and I like the way it rounds over like that because it kind of gives water has an adhesion principle to it, so it'll actually just roll in the gutter a lot better. The other thing we did is we put a gutter on the back, so when the water comes off, it's not running all the way down the coach. Put the spouts on there, and then this way it gets rid of all of that water. Boots are all heat welded in there, and that's a portable sealer that we use. So this way, I mean, this thing has a little bit of wiggle to it. It's just the way this ladder is because it's got all that length right there. But at least you don't have to worry about those loosening up and then causing leaks. Typically, they just have these mounted to the roof and they slobber it with self-leveling, and that's usually never a good mix. This ladder was all broken up too. I don't know if you remember the first part of the video, so I repaired the ladder, and then down the bottom, see if my camera will zoom up in there. What I did was I put some legs right there at the bottom that go right to the bumper. See them? So they go right to the bumper. So now, when you step on the ladder, all that weight is going right on. You can see the whole coach is moving. So it goes right onto the bumper instead of taxing these supports right here. So it just keeps it a lot stronger and also keeps these from, you know, getting compromised and then those leaking. So we also did the same. So we got that boot there, like I told you, with a portable sealer in it. And then we got a new refrigerator cover on there, but we also did the same to the radio. So this customer wanted to omit the satellite, they wanted to omit the radio, and they wanted to omit all that. So all that's gone. And then if somebody wants to, they can, you know, put the antenna on there. But that's something they'd have to bring to us if they want to. You just simply can't slap an antenna on here and then think it's going to be okay. That will definitely void a warranty for sure. So these need to be up on a curb, and that's where the antenna is. I'm going to weld a little S on there. I actually think I have it in my pocket, and so I'll weld that on there. But otherwise, this is us. We're done. And again, we appreciate it. So keep in mind, these aren't a DIY video. They're not tutorials. If you like to hit the smash the like button, I guess from what I understand, if you hit the like button, it does something to an algorithm. So if somebody else is looking for an RV roof system, it will just show up. I don't put these together for any revenue at all. I don't even put the ads up there. So this is something that YouTube has forced on me, and personally I hate them. So we put these together so the customer can see all the work that we did on their coach, because everybody always has questions. What about this? What about that? What did you find? You know, how's the roof? So on and so forth. We can say, all right, well, just you know, go ahead and watch the video, and you'll see, you know, exactly what we did. Because truly, I'll probably forget exactly all of what we did on this particular coach. You know, when you start seeing them all the time, they all kind of look the same. But you can see that the awning has a little wear to it, but it seems okay. But the awning has a little bit of wear to it. Eventually, they'll need to get a new awning on here. The other thing is make sure all these windows are sealed. You know, make sure everything is all sealed on here. They're like even, you know, everything, latches, everything. That wasn't in our work order, but that's something that a customer can do pretty easy and go around and get all that done. And believe it or not, that'll make a big difference on the coach. So other than that, we appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, so I went back and welded my S on there. Welded that on there. Then something else I wanted to show that I forgot to show, not really that important to, like, you wouldn't know it, but if you think about it, if you've got an open trough like this, right, and that's all open, bees could get up inside there and, right, make a nest. Next thing you know, you got a big old wasp nest in there. So these just pop off, they're just spring loaded. But down inside there is a piece of foam. I don't know if you can see it or not, but we put that in there so the bees can't get it down inside in there. Just a little piece of foam. It's perforated foam, it's a filter foam, so this way it can still pull some air, but at least you're not going to get all those bees in there. So other than that, we are ready to roll. And then once we pull it apart, we look around and then just do anything else. It's going to be like, I'm going to caulk all this side right here, but I can't because I got all the scaffold here. I want to put the ladder there. It'll be easier to make a nice strike down it. Same with the other side. And this one over here, same way. I'll do that. So, all right, and that's about us. Thanks again. Right. So in our care package, we have caulking, we got primer, we have got 2 patches. Those are heat patches. We got a patch, peel and stick patch. We got a checker tool. We've got a magnet, and the rest of this is just pens, keychains, brush, nozzle. Okay, so if we have a hole in the roof, it will simulate a hole. You can do hole simulations. We say we got a hole there. Here's your tree branch come through, and you're like, oh man, I got a hole in my roof, it's leaking. So what you want to do? And it's raining out. Right now it's raining, you're like, crap, I gotta stop that leak. You wanna get in there, and if you can't get that nozzle in there, don't worry about it. Make it a little bigger. What you try and do, you need to get up underneath the roofing, like this. This is what we need to do, get up underneath the roofing. Then you're gonna take and you're gonna put this up inside there, and you're gonna squeeze, 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 squeeze. Hopefully this thing is plugged up. There it goes. Just squeeze, squeeze. You want to try and get up underneath this part too. Squeeze up underneath there. Put some more underneath there. Well, we are getting this thing all boogered up. Then what we're going to do, you're going to push it together. See how it oozes out? That's sealed. You're done. This is a moisture cured product. So what? It's a hot mess. Looks terrible. Who cares? Keep the water out. So now, the next day, we're going to go up there, and that's going to be cured looking like that. So we're going to take a knife, and you just shave it down. Just shave it down with a knife. I'm just going to obviously wipe this off. Now you say, hey, I want something a little better than that. So what we're going to do is get some cleaner. This is a terrible rag. You got another one. You got one on you? Oh, get a rag, get a rag, get a rag, get a rag, get a rag.
What you gonna talk about, man? No, just leave it alone.
Oh.
Leave it alone right now. We're recording now? Are we on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alright, so now we cleaned it off with a knife. I just washed that up because it's still wet. Take that off. So now we got a patch. This is a peel and stick patch. We're going to take that, we're going to center it over there. Just take a pen and go around like this. I like to kind of put a dash like that so I know who's where, what, and where, and how. So now there's what I got. So in the package we got primer. We also have a brush. We're going to take that, you're going to go all inside the square. And you're also going to go outside this square about 3/8 of an inch. Outside about 3/8 of an inch or so. Once you get that, there's a film on the back. You peel the film, now you know which side you are, see, because there's your marks. And you peel that film back. I can get the fat fingers in there to get the film off of this thing. This is just a regular roof tape, that's all it is. We put them in all the care packages. Get that daggone thing off of there. Probably need some fingernails, probably help. Come on. There it is. Okay. Hey, there it is. Now you got the film. We'll take that film. So now we're going to line it back up with this. We already got the primer under there. You just peel the film back, and as you do, you just rub it down like this. Sometimes that film will get a little stuck in there. This is just a butyl. You just kind of try to keep it as even as you can and flat as you can. Boom, you're done. There it is. So now, out here, this is where your primer is. You put the primer on there. You got primer there, and now you're going to put primer here. You want to prime all this area with your brush. Prime all that. Then you're going to come back. Once you get it all primed, then you're going to put a little bit of caulking on it, just like this. That's simple. If it doesn't all sit in there, you can always take your finger and go around it if you want. We're trying to obviously stop a leak and make one of. There's going to be a little more permanent of a patch than just that plug that we did when it was raining. So now that we get that all done, the whole purpose of it is this part here. This part underneath here, that's a butyl. When the sun hits that, if you didn't have the caulking on there, it will cause it to release and curl up just like I'm doing here. And it'll start coming loose. That's why you need the primer. That's why when you prime it, you're going to prime on top of this because nothing will stick to it. Nothing, the caulking will not stick to this patch and it won't stick to the roof unless you use the primer. That's how you do a patch. Ta-da! All done.